should be live. Let me double check. Okay, we're good on there. And we're good on there. Okay, what's up? It's your boy Yurgy here. We got a special episode coming at you guys today. We got our boy, a legend, a myth within the Splitgate community. We got Mick Avelli. This guy here, he's done a lot in the Splitgate community. Not only that, he's done a lot in video games. And we're going to try and pick his brain today and just see how he thinks a bit and also see what he thinks about Splitgate. How you doing today, Mick?
I'm doing good, man. I appreciate you doing this interview, taking the time to, showcase some of the Splitgate community.
I mean, I thank you guys for taking the time to come on. I know I'm still a newer channel. I've been a part of the Splitgate community for a couple of years, but I'm not the biggest name in it either. So I thank you guys for taking the time to actually come on.
Of course, man. Size of channel doesn't matter, man. The initiative is all that matters at the end of the day,
Yeah.
That's what people care about.
Yep, like, at the end of the day, as long as you're putting out the content that people like to listen to, that's the biggest deal. Yeah, let's kind of just jump right into it. The first question I have for you is a pretty simple question. Again, it's a question I think any gamer should be able to ask. How did you first get into gaming? What was like your first console, and like what was the first game that you really remember playing?
So my first console is a very memorable one. I got an N64 when I was a kid from my uncle. Actually, my parents got me the N64. My uncle got me Super Smash Brothers.
Oh,
so that was like the way I got into gaming.
That's a great way to start.
I loved it, dude. Yeah, Super Smash Brothers is something special. But yeah, I was the oldest cousin, but I had a lot of like second cousins, third cousins that were like, they're like way older. So I don't really consider them in the same generation, but they were really good at games. So when I would play with them, it was definitely tough.
Yeah, no, I actually feel that because I'm one of the youngest in my family, and I was always playing with people who are 2, 4, 6 years older than I am. So I'm having to try and compete with these people who have extra years of experience on me, and it's not easy, but it's fun. Like you definitely, I think that might be where competitive players do get a little bit of their mentality at times. When did you first start playing PC, though? So you said you started on the N64. When did you first make the change from console playing to playing on PC?
So I had that growing up. That was like the first like actual console I had. But growing up, we had one of those old box computers, and my dad got me it was like this CD that had like 100 games on it. It was like a bunch of random. It was called House of Games back then. So it was just a bunch of cool computer games. I got very into that. There's Wolfenstein on that, which is like a throwback.
Yes.
And after that, it was there's a game called Medal of Honor and Dave Defeat, which were like the OG like war style games. I played a lot of that. Dave Defeat was on the old school Counter-Strike engine too. It was on the 1.6 engine, so that was really fun. Right before Source came out. So I played a lot back then. I wasn't good, obviously, but I didn't even know how to shoot straight in Counter-Strike, back in the day. But it was fun. It was definitely cool playing back then. It wasn't really something I started on first, but it was something I would play throughout the years,
Okay.
We had it.
No, that's awesome. So you started playing on PC when you're still pretty young.
Yeah, I was very young.
Nice. Let's move to the next question. Played one. Okay. What was the first game you then played that really made you realize that you wanted to get into competitive play? I feel like it's a good transition here.
So at first, I obviously started with N64 Super Smash. That was like my first game that I had, so that had a very special place in my heart. So when the GameCube came out and they had Super Smash Brothers Melee, that was something I got very, very heavily involved with for a while.
Okay.
I was better than like a lot of my family and friends, but then there were like a lot of there were like random events you could go to at GameStop and like tournaments where it was like local. And there would be people there that, so it was like, when I went to those, are a lot better players, obviously, and that made me realize I was like, wow, like, doesn't matter if you're good against your family, when you're playing against the best in any game. Even in that game, it wasn't even the best in the game. It was just in that area, it was pretty cool. During that same era, there was an MLG channel on TV, So on that, they had Halo 2 and then eventually Halo 3 competitive. So watching that got me very hyped. I was like, dude, there are people actually playing competitive multiplayer games against each other. There's a lot on the line. Obviously, it's the competitive side, but also money on the line. So it was something cool that I was like, wow. Just like sports, because I grew up with sports, I was like, people are doing it in games too now. So that's what kind of got me inspired to get involved.
No, that's actually really cool to hear that it was actually it was a kind of like a LAN party that really got you to realize like, wow, there's more to this than just like playing against family and friends.
Yeah.
No, that's actually awesome. What is it about competitive play that really hooks you in and makes you just not want to stop playing it?
So like any other like competitive person, you guys know how it is, man. Like you just want to, no matter what, if you're playing tic-tac-toe, you're playing basketball, you're playing video games, Monopoly, whatever it is, you're competitive, you know. So
Yep.
it's another medium through which you can be competitive and also put your skills to the test. That's what I like most about it. And it was very similar to sports to me because, like I said, it was my background growing up. So I was like, it's just the digital version of sports, you know, people competing against each other,
Yep.
seeing who's the best, who's trained the most, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah, no, I can completely agree with that. There's that similar mentality of I'm just constantly trying to improve this one skill to be better than everyone else at that skill. And it translates very well into video games because there are those motor skills that you have to constantly practice and even refresh or else you're going to lose them. Um, let's transition into the next. Oh, how did you first hear about Splitgate and how did you become a fan of Splitgate? Because, like, for me, I didn't hear about Splitgate until it had its big boom and then fall. And I didn't even hear about it until a couple months after that. So I'm curious, as someone who started playing it at the start, how did you first hear about it?
So it was like 2018 era around then. They had the like it was very early in the game's development
Yep.
back then. I had two different friends who separate like in completely separate situations told me about it. They're like, dude, there's this game. It's similar to Halo. It's like a futuristic shooter but with portals and it works. I was like, dude, there's no way. Like I've never played anything that's like Halo. I was a huge Halo 3 fan back in the day, so that was like my thing. I actually played on console during that era, so it was like something that I got to play finally on PC, get to experience that like vibe.
Okay.
And then the portals working, I just didn't think it was possible to get them to work that well in an FPS that quickly. So yeah, after they told me that, two different friends, one of them was my cousin, the other one's my friend. They told me about the game. They're like, dude, you have to try it. So we got on, we ran some customs, and immediately fell in love, dude. The game was S tier even back then.
Yep.
There weren't 20 players, obviously. Like even in the first like year or so, like maximum I think we got to was like maybe 70, 80 players, something like that. Streaming to like most of the people were 1047 people, you know, people from the company or people that played the game. Like it was a very tight knit community. So the community, aside from the fact that the game was just something you can't really get anywhere else, like it was love at first sight.
Heck yeah, heck yeah. No, that actually, you had almost an opposite thought of what I had when I first heard about Splitgate and the portaling mechanics, because I remember when I was in high school, I was playing Halo 4 a lot. Like I just played all the time. I was starting to get into forging a little bit, but not much yet. And I had heard about the game Portals, and I had this thought in my head, like the CEOs had, like, what if we took that portal mechanic and put it into Halo? How fun would that be to play? Well, I didn't think specifically Halo. I was thinking like an FPS in general. I just thought it would fit so perfectly, and once I heard about Splitgate, it was almost like a dream come true. Like, this was the game I've always thought about and always wanted to play, and now here it is. So it was
Exactly.
yeah, just great game. Okay, what is it about the Splitgate community that makes playing Splitgate so much fun? And then also to kind of snowball off that question, what is it about 1047 in specific that makes it so enjoyable to be a part of the community?
So Splitgate in general, I've said this before, and I think it's true across the board that if you're good at Splitgate, or if in general you just like the game and can understand the game and play it properly, I think it's a very specific group or category of gamers that are different than any other game. Like I think the polar opposite of that would be something like maybe Call of Duty. Not saying any like bad things about COD or any hate towards it, but it's something where anybody could pick it up, be good at it. You know, it's pretty brainless.
Hmm.
Whereas Splitgate, it's like you definitely need to learn the game and get it down before you can even actually enjoy the game. At least if your like opponents know what they're doing.
I
So
Yeah, I can agree with that.
yeah, so it's just like it was a very special community because anybody I met, I was like, okay, your brain works different. You know, you're just actually built different. So
Yeah.
any game, every other game we've played, no matter what, even if it wasn't Splitgate, a lot of the people that I met in Splitgate, that community carried over. I met a lot of like long-term friends. And it hasn't really happened like that with any other community in the same way. So I think Splitgate community in general is something very special. I think it's part of like just the people that are part of it and also just the game itself that attracts that type of people that makes it so good.
Yeah.
And then 1047 as a whole, I think since day one, I was saying since like 2018, 2019 era, like everybody there has been like family, whether
Yeah.
it's like we're talking about Ian or like whether it's like the newest hires that they get, it's as
Yeah.
if the culture is like that, you know,
Yeah.
over there. It's just like it's a
I've
family. It's a close group.
met a couple of the newer devs, and it's like they just fit into the Splitgate communities almost too perfectly. It's almost like they've been a part of it, and now they're just like, oh, we're devs now. So it's kind of a cool feeling to have. Like, I like to say I haven't felt this from a gaming company in over 15 years, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I've never played a game or been a part of a community that was this involved and this genuinely nice and caring about the people playing their game.
Yeah, that's facts, man.
And I want to go back to what you said about the people that play this game are just different. That's something I was actually starting to notice too. It's just the people I've met and played on this game, they're a different level of gamer. They're able to go on to almost any other game and pick it up like that. And it just makes it so fun because you guys can be playing all these different kinds of games, but then we hear some big Splitgate news drop and then we're all back at Splitgate playing the same game again, and it's kind of
Yeah.
cool.
I love that.
Yeah. Let's move to the next question though. Oh, was there any Splitgate tournaments that really stood out to you? I haven't had much time to really watch a lot of tournaments, although I do remember there was one community tournament that stood out to me, but I want to hear from you.
So for me, the most fun I've had, I mean, there have been a few times I've had the most fun in tournaments or competitive play, but the old school days where we had 2v2 tourneys, like it was the Divergence Cups back then, like there's 100 players in the game, you know, so it was very fun just because you knew everybody. Everybody was good. You'd been practicing with everybody already, so it was very early, so that was pretty memorable. Outside of that, obviously the Community Classic, winning that 10K tourney, that was pretty memorable for me too.
Was there anything about that 10K tournament that you'll never forget?
Yeah, so I remember I think it was in the semis. It might have been the semis. So one of our teammates disconnected, and there was a chance that we were gonna have to play 3v4 in that because he wasn't able to reconnect.
Oh,
They eventually
okay.
restarted it, but yeah,
Okay.
during that game it was a 3v4. The first minute and a half, I didn't realize that like after they had called, okay, we're gonna reset. I didn't realize that they were backing out, so I was playing solo against the entire enemy team, and there were like 2 plays back to back where I killed like 2-3 people, got out, got back in. So it was like it
That's
wasn't
crazy.
supposed to be going on the match, but I was in there solo, so that was an interesting experience. And that I thought we were gonna lose 100% after that, but you know, I was so locked in, I didn't even realize they were gonna reset. Yeah, it was a very cool event because
Oh,
everybody
yeah.
was involved. You know, the entire community was involved pretty much.
Yeah, no, that's actually really cool. No, really cool. What are some of the most memorable super custom moments you have? I know you've joined us a couple times in the past. I just want to know if anything has stood out to you.
So it was after console launch. It was actually a while after we were doing customs every single week, and
Yeah.
they were packed. So like it was
Yes.
literally
We'd have like two
like
or three lobbies going every weekend.
that's the way, bro. It feels
Yep.
so nice because it's like it's not something that's like an in-game like mode, or it's not something that 1047 organizes, but it's something that the community is able to get together and do, and it's something that's always been fun.
Yep.
But I do remember one specific time there was a brand new set of maps that came out. It was the Hunger Game maps, and I hadn't
Oh,
played Hunger Games at all. I didn't even know that was like a thing. So
yes.
I tried one of those Hunger Games maps. I don't remember which one it was. It was one of the small ones. Like it was a two-level map. It was very
Yeah.
small. But I had one of the most fun times I've ever had on a
Yes.
custom map playing that, and I'll
No,
never forget that.
Hunger Games easily became one of the community's favorites just because of how much fun you can have in that short period of time. In fact, anyone listening right now, I just dropped a short on my YouTube. It's just a compilation of a bunch of different Hunger Game clips. It is a really good watch. I highly recommend you go and check that out. But Hunger Games, it's just there's something about the high stakes of it, but yet the fun nature that just I don't know. It makes everyone from casual players to the most competitive players just have a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh, what are you most excited for in the Splitgate 2 beta? Because I know we're only 2 days away. I've been hyped for the past 3 months, and I can't contain it anymore. Only 2 days. What is it that you're excited to play, or just see?
So I think the fact that they're adding customs, that's going to be really cool
Hmm.
because a lot of the competitive players we would do Q snipes, which is kind of messy. You know, sometimes
Yep.
you don't get in the right lobby. So customs are going to be really cool because you get to actually push the boundaries of the game with other players that are really good.
Yep.
So that's going to be cool. Aside from that, I think just the new maps in general, the remake of Stadium. You know, they've actually
Yeah.
teased a lot of cool things that are coming out
Yeah.
on the during the beta. Even though they said that there's actually a lot more coming on launch. So like I'm hyped to
Yeah.
see what that's going to be, but I'm
It,
very hyped to see all the new additions and like also like you were saying like when Splitgate comes back around, you know, the rest of the community just gets together,
yeah.
everybody's back. So
I've already
that
started to see that happen. People are
yeah.
already starting to trickle back. I'm excited to see what happens after the launch.
Yeah, I'm hyped for that, man. It's gonna be nice being
Yep.
back with everybody again.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Do you have any thoughts on how ranked or competitive play might look in Splitgate 2? I know we might not be seeing ranked play right as soon as the beta drops. And I know you guys are going to be doing a lot of testing during the beta, but from what you've played so far, do you have any thoughts on how it might work?
So there are some issues when it comes to competitive that need to be addressed. They did say, yeah, that ranked is not going to be a thing yet, which a lot of people, including myself, obviously, like it's sad we want to play ranked, but I think releasing it in a way to where it's going to be balanced, it's going to be a good mode, it's going to be important, but also difficult to do. So
Yeah.
like having all the different abilities, the different weapons, balancing that depending on what map you're on isn't going to be like that straightforward.
No.
Like maps like Zenith, for example, a lot of people are running like multiple Meridian, just infinite scanning the entire time. So you can abuse a lot of mechanics with the new abilities on certain maps in ways to where in competitive it might be
Okay.
a little bit imbalanced, you know? So like I feel like those things being addressed or needing to be addressed, I think it's priority number one over ranked mode. But I think that they're probably going to go down the same path, do the whole 4v4 takedown or 4v4 mode and then the takedown now that they announced the takedown map. So they're probably going to have those individual ranked modes. I don't know if they're going to do a big team ranked. It might be a little much, you know, but I'd say they're probably going to go down the traditional route of ranked most likely.
Yeah, I definitely see them going down the doing ranked and everything. I don't see a big team ranked. You don't see that really in many games that do that big team mode. It is definitely meant to be more of a casual mode. While we're on this though, are there any current balancing problems that you can think of? I know you brought up how some of the abilities can be abused on certain maps. Is there anything else?
I think the weapon balance in general needs a bit of tuning just because a lot of people um anytime there's like a rapid fire attachment, I've noticed everybody's running it because
Yeah.
it's just there's no real trade-offs. I mean, there is a trade-off, but it's not big enough to where that DPS increase isn't
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah, if you can
So
get faster DPS, you're going to take it every time.
yeah, you'll win those fights with that. So it's
Yep.
like it's one of those things where it's like, okay, if everybody's running an attachment on every single gun that has it, then is it something that should even be around as an attachment option, or is it something that should just be changed or tuned in the actual weapon and then adjust the attachments accordingly. X-Define had that same problem too for a while, where in the beginning it was the exact same attachment actually. It was rapid fire. So what they eventually did is they just nerfed it to the ground pretty much. Up close it was still good on SMGs, but super long range you couldn't abuse it.
Okay.
Kind of like you can now with a lot of the rapid fire SMGs. Like
Yep.
the Rattler, for example, like that thing shoots so fast and it ramps up, so it's doing more DPS as you're continuing to shoot it.
Yes.
You add the rapid fire to that, it makes it exponentially better, right? So it's like I think certain attachments and certain abilities, like we were talking about Meridian on some maps, maybe there could be some tuning done with that.
Okay.
But I mean, Akuvo's in charge of that, you know, and Akuvo was a comp player in the old game too. So I think having somebody like that in charge of that type of stuff, it's in good hands.
Yeah,
you know?
And on top of that, you also don't want to always overtune for strictly competitive play either, because then you start to push away a lot of casual players as well. So finding a little bit of that balance isn't easy to find, but I have faith with someone like Akuvo that he can do it.
Yeah, and I think they can do custom like modes that or custom rules for each mode if you're doing competitive and not. So you can. They want it to be pretty close. I think they've mentioned, but like the casual mode is, and then the ranked mode, they don't want it there to be like too much of a discrepancy between the two.
But at the same time,
but you can do things, you know, like radars off in comp, for example, in the original Splitgate. Like you could do little tuning things that can change it for ranked and make it more balanced.
Yep, I agree with that. There's definitely ways where you can change certain things to make ranked feel more balanced without making those changes to just casual play. I do have a quick question. What would you think about adding a second ability to each faction just to add a little bit more depth of play?
Like you're saying additional, like other than the ultimate, or are you saying like, okay, gotcha.
Yep.
I think they could do that, definitely. I think it's going to require more balancing like anything else, obviously.
Of course.
But I do think each class individually is like distinct and unique enough to where they're very different from each other. You're getting a very unique play style depending on which one you're playing. So they could double down on that, but I think they're already unique enough to where it's not necessarily like an important thing to do.
Okay. No, I just wanted to get thoughts from one of the best. Let's move on to the next question then. Where were we? Balancing. What do you think? Okay. I mean, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but let's go a little bit more in depth. What do you think a pro league in Splitgate 2 would look like, and how do you think it's going to get started? Because I know there's been talks about 1047 not promoting the pro and rank scene quite as much at first. So do you have any thoughts on that?
So their overall stance was that they want to make sure that the core game is good before they get into competitive, which I mean, I get it. Even as a competitive player, like it's understandable trying to make sure that your game is good first before getting into anything like secondary, like esports. And also like it's weird with Splitgate because unlike other games, it's not as much of like a good marketing move or a good advertising move to show the best of the best against the best, because the gameplay isn't really that. You can't understand what's going on unless you're also good or you understand the meta of what's going on.
It's so fast paced that it is really hard to like keep up unless you're someone who plays at least close to that level, because you know what to look at and what you're watching. Even then, it's not always the most enjoyable watch. So So
I think that's the key is that it's not something that if they do, it's necessarily going to help the game as just like general player base. So I get why they're kind of delaying that, but I do know there are definitely some tier 1 orgs that are already behind the scenes trying to get involved or like inquiring about what's going to happen. So there is a very, very high chance that I don't know exactly when it's going to happen. Actually, I don't know when, but I think they'll eventually do it, assuming everything goes good, unless the game just flops. But the game itself, like the competitive scene, what it's going to look like, I think it'll be pretty similar to what they did in the first one, just because it was a good system overall. There was a pro league, everybody was like a part of it. They would do like just their general tournaments, they would have their seasons, and then what was cool is eventually they even had qualifiers for the final tournament. So there's a period of time where before the final tournament I was doing just doing content, pumping content, making sure that side of it was covered. I had stopped playing pro for a little bit, and then the final 250k tournament was going to happen. So instead of just making it to where whoever was in the league is locked, they made it to where there were certain qualifiers that you could play in to win, and then if you won the tournament, you would qualify and get into the Pro League final tournament.
Okay.
So I think that was pretty cool because it gave people that weren't involved necessarily that could play well enough an opportunity to get in. That was pretty cool. So I think doing something similar to that, just following the same structure they did in the last one's probably the best bet.
Oh yeah. Where are we again? Pro League. Okay, if you could get anything you wanted in Splitgate 2, what would it be? I know you tend to be more on the competitive side, so I'm interested to hear what you might ask for.
So the number one thing was customs, which they're releasing, obviously, so that's going to be pretty hype. Aside from that, I'd say the main thing that I'm looking forward to most is being able to play the takedown maps and like stadium, like the old school maps in the new game.
Yes,
so it would be cool to have something like my main thing that I really, really want is to get Abyss back.
Yes.
Abyss map back.
Yes.
That was my favorite map.
Abyss.
Yeah. So hopefully they can, that's what I'm hoping for.
I think we're going to get Abyss at some point. I don't know when. It seems like they're either keeping very closed lips on if they're gonna be giving us Abyss, or they're waiting until like the full launch to then give us Abyss. But I really hope that they give us Abyss. Please, 1047, I am begging you, give us Abyss.
That would be sick, man. That would be so good.
It would be so awesome. What Splitgate 1 maps would you like to see make a comeback in Splitgate 2? Abyss is off the table, okay?
Abyss, other than Abyss, I think there are a lot of interesting maps. The thing is, like, the problem with trying to bring the old maps to the new ones is that in the new game there's not as much verticality, right? So if you're playing something like Highwind where it's just pure verticality, right?
Yeah.
It might not work or play in the same way as it does in this game. So I feel like things like any map that doesn't have as much verticality that matches the overall map design of Splitgate 2 would be cool to have. Something like maybe like Olympus would be sick, you know? That map's pretty cool.
I've been hearing a lot of people ask for Olympus. A nice rework for Splitgate 2 would be nice.
That would be cool to have, but it's going to play different, you know? That's the thing, because of the new game. Outpost, I think Outpost would be interesting just because that one was less verticality, you know?
Okay.
So,
I'm actually...
those would be cool.
I haven't been as big of a fan of the lack of verticality in Splitgate 2, I'm not going to lie. It would be nice to get some of the older maps that do have a little bit of that verticality. Maybe not quite as much, but just enough to where the maps don't feel quite as flat. Just to mix it up a little bit.
I think that comes down to like their new philosophy, you know, like making it more player friendly. The less verticality you have, the less you have to worry about actually like portal routing up. And you can just focus on the actual battlefield, you know. So in a lot of ways, it makes it easier, you know, to not have as much. So I get that angle too. But like you said, it's fun, man. I like the vertical maps.
I'm not saying every map has to be super vertical, but having that nice mix of them in there, it keeps the map rotation nice and fresh. At least that's what I think.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the next one? Why do you think competitive players will take Splitgate 2 seriously? I know some competitive players liked Splitgate 1, but the competitive scene wasn't quite as serious in Splitgate 1. What do you think would be the difference between that to now?
So the thing is, in the first game, the skill ceiling was so high that if you were really good and you were like just good in general at FPS, I think Splitgate was the perfect game to try to play competitively. The reason being, I've played pretty much every game that you can imagine, any FPS, I should say, in the last like 5-6 years, competitively, usually at the highest level, and nothing ever scratches the itch like Splitgate has or does. So I think when it comes to just pure competitive, like the competitive nature of an esport, I think Splitgate could. I think it's actually probably the craziest and best esport that could ever exist. Not necessarily like as a spectator sport, but as just purely from the competitive player's perspective. I think you can push the boundaries of mechanics in your mind as far as you can in this game compared to any other game. So I think going into the second one, obviously I don't think that, like we were saying, like they're not going to be focused on it early.
Yep.
But I think for that exact same reason, once they do start releasing more competitive focused things and tournaments and maybe a pro league eventually, I think any player that really wants to see what they're capable of in an FPS, I think it'll be alluring for them to play Split.
Yeah, I can actually agree with that because I'm not even a big competitive player, but it scratches that competitive itch I do have, where it's like I do occasionally want to hop in Splitgate rank and play some takedown with my friends, just because that feeling of getting a good portal play off and confusing your opponent for just a second, it feels so good. You don't get that in any other game. You can't do those high level plays any other game.
It's not possible, man.
No.
Like even like I could compare it to even one of my like other biggest achievements in another game. Like we won a 50K BattleBit Twitch Rivals, okay? That win to me wasn't even comparable to getting in like qualifying for the 250K tourney in Splitgate. Like the actual worth to me, like how satisfying it was, how rewarding it was, it's not even comparable. Like it was just playing one of the best, most competitive games out there, in my opinion, FPS at the highest level against the best players. You know, we lost, but we lost to T1, you know? So
Yep.
it's like those types of situations, it's not possible to get that feeling in any other game. Even if you're playing at the highest level, if you're competing,
Yep.
the feeling, the dopamine is not even remotely comparable to
Hell
Split.
yeah. Hell yeah. No, I can agree with that. I remember there was years FPS games in general didn't scratch that itch. But then I started to play Splitgate, and it's like just addicted, and it was always scratching that itch. I couldn't put it down. And honestly, I kind of feel that same way with map building too. Like being able to get onto Splitgate and make a map in its editor, it's completely different than going on to a game like Halo and making a map for Halo, because level design in every other FPS game has been so thought out and well planned out that every corner of it has been discovered. Like you know how to, like, this is how you make a 3-lane FPS map. This is how you're supposed to do it. There's very little creativity left with how you can play with your layouts. But then you throw portals into the mix, it completely changes level design on its head, and it opens up all these new avenues of creativity that you normally just didn't have. And it's makes it so much more fun to constantly think of new ideas to make. This is actually a personal question I have. So as someone who is 25 years old, I've been playing on controller since I could first pick one up. In fact, my first console was a GameCube, and playing Super Mario World or something like that. I forgot the exact Mario game it was. I still play controller to this day. I have a PC setup and everything. I cannot play on MNK just because it just doesn't feel right. Do you have any tips for me to make the transition from playing on controller to playing on MNK?
Okay, so controller is a unique one because it's just fundamentally different in how it works, obviously. So I've coached a couple people on controller that were switching, and the main thing that we focused on is trying to break down, okay, what does aim assist do, like functionally? What are you getting as like a buff playing on controller? And then figure out basically those situations or those categories, because those are the ones you're going to be weakest in for controller, because you have the crutch. It's just the aim assist, the way it works.
Yep.
Functionally is just like it's helping in certain situations more than others. So things like micro corrections, like when you have your crosshair on an enemy with aim assist, a lot of the times any type of micro correction or reactive movement that they're doing, you're not really having to adjust accordingly. You do react, but it's like there's a certain amount of extra margin of error that you have because of that.
So
for micro corrections.
One thing I would say with micro corrections too on controller is you get so used to the aim assist. To make a micro correction, you use your left joystick to move your player instead of using your right joystick to move your aim, because it's a lot easier to get the auto correction with just a slight movement of the player instead of accidentally bumping your aim too far and having to go all wonky.
Overcorrect. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
So like the left analog thing, it's at its core, it's rotational aim assist on the left analog. So basically it's moving your actual axis with the enemy. So you're pretty much like, imagine a line is tethered between you and the enemy and it's adjusting accordingly. That's what the left analog rotational aim assist does. Whereas the right analog, a lot of the times what most games have, it'll add like a bit of a like slow or friction on the target,
Yep.
which also helps with margin of error. So a lot of times with controller players switching to MNK, I'd say try to figure out how to isolate those weaknesses that you've built with habit because of
Yep.
controller. Find scenarios like reactive tracking or some dynamic clicking scenarios where you're going to have to basically worry about, okay, I'm going to have to react perfectly, or I'm going to have to stop on a dime and not have that extra margin of error. So doing things that isolate those weaknesses, if you fix those problems,
Okay.
switching from controller to mouse and keyboard it'll be very seamless because the rest of the actual like the way you play, the way you think, your
It's yeah.
positioning, all the other stuff, it's all the same. You know, it's just mechanically speaking, there are a lot of it's just a crutch that you have to get around with
Yep.
aim assist, and you can train against that.
Yeah. Yeah. I probably should be downloading like aimbot or something, or aim labs, I
Aim
think is.
Labs,
Yep.
Kovacs, any of them
Yeah.
really, bro. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter which aim
Yeah.
training
I grew
software you got.
I learned to aim before those were even a thing, so it's like I learned the old school way, and I try to do that on MNK. It doesn't feel good, and I'm immediately back to my controller within a game.
Yeah, I mean, being in the game too, by the way, side note, is also a very good way to train your aim too. Even if you're on MNK, you can go fight against bots, whatever it
Yeah.
is, get the game's mechanics, figure out the movement, the inertia with strafing, all that. Once you figure that side of it out, you could do the same type of aim training scenarios in the game if you could isolate those same weaknesses. It's still doable on both.
Hell yeah, hell yeah! Thank you for that. That's probably some of the best advice I've gotten for making the switch too. So thank you for that. I do want to ask you, we are coming close to the end here. Normally at the end of my interviews, I do open it up to the chat. If you're okay with that, we still got like 15 or so minutes here. So
Yeah,
you cool? Let me pull chat
I'm
up
down with that.
real quick. Just give me a sec, chat. I gotta pull it up. While I'm doing that, just hold on to your questions because I can't see them yet. Docket downloads. Here we go. I need a better thing for seeing both of my chats. Come on. Okay, guys, leave your chats. I can see everything now. Just hoped oh, yeah. Okay. While we're waiting on them to put their chats in, I have one last question for you, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but I just want to ask, can we be expecting to see you in our Splitgate 2 Super Customs?
I'll definitely be there, man.
Oh,
And I was
hell
talking to
yeah.
a few other people in the servers. I want to do a thing just like when console launch happened, where once a week, maybe it's most likely to be once a week, I want to showcase like 2 to 3 maps, the
Hell
best,
yeah.
coolest new maps. Kind of like how file share used to be in Halo, where you could see like the community promoted stuff. Not necessarily things that are like might be getting a lot of views on socials or whatever it is. There are a lot of hidden gems in the
Yes,
community,
there
especially
are.
with the map makers. So I wanna showcase some of those. And like I said, that the Hunger Games was so fun that day, man. I had so much fun. So I want to have more moments like that where we could see what's actually possible when the community makes their own thing.
I mean, you should be excited for what we got planned. I've been just analyzing the different game modes they've showed us so far and the different mechanics that I've seen. Expect to see a basketball mode. That's all I'm going to say.
That's what I want, bro. That'll be my dream.
It's going to be like some
I
sort
want a
of
basketball mode.
basketball or football mode with split ball. It's possible. Like, it's easily possible. I'm pretty sure I could set up the spawns with the ball too, to where it always spawns in like right in the middle, and then you have like a jump ball to get it. I
That
just
would be
feel
awesome.
yeah, no, and that's just like one of the first ideas I've had. I haven't even had a chance to touch the custom games or map editor yet, but ooh, I am excited. Here, let me go over and check this out. See if we got anything from over here. Okay, Phoenix, do you have any questions for Mick and about Splitgate 2 or just any questions in general? Hi, Stoma. You most excited? Okay, Wounded Tundra said, what are we most excited for in Splitgate 2? Honestly, custom games is easily the thing I'd have to say we're most excited for. There's just so many things we're going to be able to do with that.
Yeah, customs are going to be special in every way, whether it's the casual side or the competitive side. I think it's going to be huge.
Hell yeah. Um, yeah, it doesn't really seem like we're getting a lot of questions, though, sadly. But,
You asked some good ones, bro. There aren't any more to ask.
right? You plan on trying to get into esports if they have it for Splitgate 2 from Phoenix. I'm guessing that's for you.
I'm probably going to be doing the same thing as the first one, where I'm going to be doing the content, especially because they don't have like an esports plan yet.
Yeah.
But if there's anything going on, tournaments, whatever, you guys can expect me to probably put together a team and try to make it just like the last 250K tourney.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Do I have any other questions I want to ask real quick off the top of my head? One thing I do want to know, you guys said that you're going to be doing custom games with other top level players. Are you guys going to be running some sort of like pug tournaments in those custom games at some point?
Yeah, so there are pugs that go on, and they still go on actually in Splitgate 1.
Hell yeah.
There's still people playing, so we're actually transferring over everything to a new, well, not a new server. It is a new server technically, but it's the old competitive server. So me, JP, a bunch of other people are admins in there, and we're setting up basically like an infrastructure for not only pugs for the new game, but also for being able to run events, because there are a few different community-driven events that we got planned behind the scenes for competitive as well as for casual. So
hell yeah, I was gonna say,
for custom specifically, it's pugs usually. Yeah,
yep.
That's the main reason why it benefits the competitive side.
To merge to them, I was like, Phoenix is saying they try to get SGA to merge to them. Are you talking about God Pugs? Or are you talking about that community hub that was just made? I'm not sure what he's...
Are you talking about the architects, like combining map makers with the competitive? Is that what he means?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Yeah, he was talking about God Pugs.
Yeah, God Pugs was the old server, and now there's a new comp server.
What's the name of the new one?
I don't even know what they named it now. I'll tell you right now. Give me a sec.
Because there's that Splitgate community hub that was just made. And then there's the SCL community.
Yeah, I think it is the community hub. They called it community hub, so maybe they're thinking about taking it more in like the general community direction too.
Yeah.
But that's where we're going to be doing pugs too. In there now. That's going to be like the new place.
I think that's a good rebranding for pugs, honestly.
What's cool about this is, I didn't even realize they named it this, but I guess they could incorporate other parts of the community into it this way. That could be cool.
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to use it as a way to connect all of the Splitgate communities into one, but at the same time, the communities are still going to have their own little like corners, you know?
Yeah.
Lame, you should merge. Okay, I think we're gonna end it there, guys. There's not really many questions coming in at this point. I want to thank you, Micavelli, for stopping by and talking. I honestly had a blast talking with you. You are great at speaking. You covered a lot of topics that I haven't been able to cover yet, and you gave a good perspective on the competitive side. So I honestly thank you for stopping by.
Of course, man. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, no problem. And for anyone in chat, just remember, Splitgate 2 drops in 2 days. 2 days, guys. I'm going to be speed building my takedown map Infinity Loop as soon as the servers drop. So make sure you tap into my stream to get a first look at the map creator and everything involved with that. With that being said, guys, we're going to end stream here. Y'all have a great day, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.
See you, chat.